Board of Supervisors will now come to order. Mr. Vaughn, will you provide the invocation for us?
Yes. Let us pause. Gracious God, our Father, we give thanks to you for your many blessings. We pray that what we say, do, and even think in this meeting tonight will be pleasing to you and acceptable by you. In your name we pray. Amen.
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 Let us not forget this weekend and the meaning of this weekend. Thank you.
Amen.
Stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight's meeting is the board work session, and the first item on our agenda is the Virginia Department of Transportation Secondary 6-Year Plan. Diana Bryant, Assistant Residency Administrator with VDOT, joins us tonight to present the plan. Hey,
Madam
Diana.
Chairman, if I may, before Ms. Bryant gets started, I hope the board enjoys this process because this will be the last one that we will be participating in with Ms. Bryant. She is looking forward to her retirement. Way too soon for us,
Yeah.
but we wish you, certainly wish you the best.
Our best wishes.
Congratulations.
Thank
Well
you.
deserved.
Thank you. That's the plan for the end of the year, but we all know how plans can change. All right. Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Costin. I wanted to introduce Aaron French to everyone. He's the maintenance manager at the Petersburg Residency. And I think he met most of you except for a couple, but he's here with me tonight, and he may be representing VDOT in some of the months to come as well. I put before you this packet. I want to go over the items that are in it, and then we can discuss a little bit. So this is a copy of the 6-year plan draft. It's in a little bit different format that's been in the past few years. This item right here tells you how much money is proposed for the telefees for the next 6 years and the district grant unpaved money. The next item in your packet is the county traffic count, and this is in traffic count order from the highest count to the lowest. The next one is for your convenience of being able to find a route that you're looking for. This one is in route order, so if you're looking for any particular route, you can just look at this list here in route order and find your traffic count. And the map that I've got here for you, if you look at your 6-year plan, I just took a marker and wrote the number beside each project, and then I put it on the map corresponding in a location. So if you'll look at number 1, the High Point Road, it's highlighted on your map with the 1, and the same with the other projects. And then the pink, the ones that are highlighted in pink, those are the routes that are eligible. Those are over 50 vehicles per day. And then there's a first and a second, and those are VDOT's recommendations on that map. So I just wanted to explain a little bit of the items that are in your packet, and now I'll go through the plan that we have currently in place, and then I'll go over our recommendations and why we're recommending these projects. So the first project in the 6-year plan is the guardrail installation, and you know that's been in the plan for several years. This was a result of the study that was done by a consultant for a safety study for guardrail on 723. And with this money here, this should complete the remaining locations in priority order for 723. And we're actually using an on-call contractor to install that. The next project is High Point Road. And you'll see underneath the UPC on the very left side, there's a 2.02. The first two is for the category of the rural rustics, the unpaved roads, and the two is, this was the second project in the priority. So once we redo the 6-year plan, that will move to a 1, and so on with the remaining projects. Unless the county chooses to change the priority order, then those numbers will change. High Point Road is actually funded, and the only thing that we're waiting for now is environmental clearance, and once we get environmental clearance, we'll be able to build that project, so most likely it will be built this summer. The second project is Route 647, Jennings Ordinary Road. That project will be funded in July, so hopefully we can move that project a little early and get that done this year as well. The third project is Route 684, Crystal Lake Road. That project is, well, you'll also see the construction dates over here. Some of these need to be updated because when I distributed the funding on the projects in your plan, some of it was enough to move these projects forward. So you'll see on Crystal Lake Road under the CN on the right-hand side of your page, you see a 9528. That was the former construction date, and now you'll see where the funding ends below that under FY24. So that project was actually moved up 4 years. So once we finish with the work session and I bring this to the board and to the public for a public hearing, all of these dates will be brought within the money that's there now. Number 4, Williamson Road intersection study. I wrote just beneath that most likely this will come out of the 6-year plan because the survey is complete. We asked for one more item, so once we do our 6-year plan, this will be dropped. And the money that is on this project, if there's anything left after the survey is done, we can move to other projects and move those along faster as well. The next project in your plan is Williamson Road, Route 655. And you'll see the construction date originally on that was 10/28. And the final funding for that project you'll see now is in 2026. So that project was actually moved up 2 years. And the last project in the plan is Route 686, Barnes Road. That project is set for construction in 2026 as well. It shows the final funding in 2027, but that's actually July of 26. So, and the last project in the plan, this is future secondary projects line item, and the past year during COVID, when we didn't do a lot of public hearing and everything, most of the counties put their money in this line item here if we didn't have projects to distribute it on. Most of the money that's in this line item, you'll see below there, secondary formula telecommunication money. $167,000 is currently on there, and then projected is $36,000 is rounded for the following 6 years. And then the unpaved money is in the outer years 27 and 28. That money is what is left for you to add projects to your 6-year plan. So now I want to go to this sheet here. I just made this just a little bit easier to follow. The district grant unpaved, you can see in FY23, Nottoway is getting $77,000, 24, $66,000, 25, $66,000, 26, $69,000, 27, $69,000, and 28, $69,000. And in the telefees, all the way across the 6 years of the plan, the county is getting $35,703. In the yellow highlighted area there, you can see the last 2 years of the plan where there's $40,000 remaining in 2027. that can be allocated to start a project, and FY '28, there's 70,000. So there's 110,000 at the end of your plan to add new projects. The, in the blue block beneath there, it's just highlighting that there are telefees readily available, 166,545. That money can be used for any project that the county wants to look at doing, a turn lane or an intersection improvement or something like that. That doesn't have to go on unpaved roads. It does need to go on secondary routes. But the district grant unpaved money is only applied to projects with 50 vehicles per day or higher. So if you'll look at your your traffic count order, this sheet here, the traffic count order, the first route on that list is Reservation Road, Route 636 with 100 vehicles per day. That road carries mostly military traffic. So that count was done in August of 14. So it's pretty old. We did have some roads that were counted during 2020. That actually dropped to 20 vehicles per day. But if the vehicle count dropped really low, I didn't add that on here. If we increased, I did add that on here because I didn't want roads to be removed from eligibility during COVID. But if they increased, I did add those on here. So Elletts Mill Road has been on the list for a while. It has 60 vehicles per day, and that count was from 2014. So, but that project is not eligible to be built with rural rustic because it doesn't meet the guidelines for rural rustic. It's going to need considerable amount of work, so it can't be built under the rural rustic guidelines, but it is on here because it is an eligible unpaved road. The next one is Piper Lane with 60 vehicles per day. That count was done in 2020, so that brought that project up to that route to 60 vehicles per day. The next one that's eligible is Route 652, and these aren't in any particular order because all of these have 60 vehicles per day. Hawthorne Drive, that route also has 60 vehicles per day. And then Route 672, Harper Road, that road has 50 vehicles per day, and that count was done in 2014. So in order to make our recommendation, we actually go out and look at all of the roads, and based on that and the road that serves more citizens, we recommend the first priority to be added to the plan would be Route 652 Hawthorne Drive. And then the second priority would be Piper Lane. So if you added two projects, one would be almost fully funded in the plan, and then at the very last year, you'd be able to start funding a second project. So you can add two projects to the 6-year plan this year. So, do you have any discussion or any questions, or what is your?
Madam Chairman, if I could, I'm going to pass out some slightly altered documents. Staff took the liberty to take these documents that Ms. Bryant sent to us, and we marked them up to show the project areas as to which district they fall into under the current, and I'll ask you to pass those down, please. Under the current election district format, and then also what the proposed and pending redistricting map would show, just so you have some concept of a little bit of the spread between all the districts. Only a couple change, but there are some changes of different roads that move from one election district to another just by virtue of the change in the election district line.
Any questions for Ms. Bryant? Any comments?
So what I'll need from the board is a decision on what routes that you would like to add to the plan. Ideally, if we could do that tonight, that would be great. But I also wanted to, I wanted this document here that's in front of you. This is the proposed, what they call, it's a modified RCI, which is a reduced conflict intersection. It's also known as a hybrid R-cut. There's been a lot of requests for a project there at 723, and several years ago, the county submitted a smart scale application, and it was approved. So this job is completely funded with smart scale money. None of this comes out of Nottoway County's secondary money or anything like that. So this was put together by our traffic engineering section, and the reason for this entire packet here is, if you'll look at this last sketch in your packet, you'll see there's a crossover here that they are requesting to close. And the reason for that is, if this crossover remains open once this reduced conflict intersection is complete, instead of people following the design as they should and go down to where it's built to make the U-turn to come back around, they're going to use this crossover, and it's going to create more conflict points, and it's going to cause this intersection not to function as it's designed. And so I didn't see an issue with closing that crossover, but we did want to bring it to the board, the county, for you all to take a look at and read over all of the information that was provided there. And if you have any questions on that, I'd be glad to entertain those. Or if you're in favor of going along with us removing that crossover, we can just move along with that.
Madam Chair, as far as to her first point about the their first priority and second priority recommendations, I have no issues with that. But the standard's been not to make motions in a work session, so.
That's what I was going to ask. I'm assuming this would require a board vote?
It's a direction. You're giving staff direction, so you're fine.
And we can, I imagine next week we can make a retroactive motion during a regular board meeting as well.
I think you're fine to do it at this one. It's a work session. You're basically giving direction to the staff. If you want to put it to a vote, if it's a consensus statement, she does need some direction on putting together the final document for public hearing. At that time, you want to be making certain formal motions.
Right. Well, and they know more about this than I do, and I would absolutely yield to their first priority and second priority, as y'all requested, and also the closure of the issue of the intersection over there on 723, so y'all could get that complete. I have no problems with that. That'll be fine moving forward with their request.
Could we give direction to staff to move forward with this? Are y'all in favor of that?
Yeah.
And if you want to make a formal approval for removing this median, we can do that next week.
Okay.
You'll have more time to look at that. I just want to be able to provide the project manager some kind of direction as to where the county is going to go with that.
We can place this on the agenda for next week.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Bryant. We appreciate it. Okay, Next on our agenda, we've got some discussion relating to various components of the county budget. County's Commissioner of the Revenue, Christy Hudson, is here tonight and is going to talk to us about personal property tax rates. Hi, Christy.
Good evening.
How are y'all?
Good.
Hey.
Okay, so as you all know, the House Bill 1239 passed, and 58.1-3506 of the Code of Virginia has been amended. I've done my best to keep you all updated with each update I've received. As you also know, the value of most vehicles up to 10 years old has risen significantly due to COVID-19 supply problems and increased customer demands. As myself and my staff have been working the personal property, we are even noticing increases in vehicles that are as old as 20 years. Even though those increases are small compared to others, it's still an increase. For example, a 2005 Crown Victoria, the value in '21 was $975. This year, the value was $1,400. Not a big increase, but it's still an increase. A 10-year-old vehicle, a 2012 Toyota Corolla, last year was valued at $4,550. This year, it's $6,525. Now, here's a kicker. A 2019 GMC Yukon, last year was valued at $38,000. This year, it's valued at $49,400. That's an increase of $11,400.
Wow.
So out of the roughly 13,700 that we have already worked, I've seen one vehicle that pulled in 350 less than last year, one. Now, we still have about 7,000 more to work. Even with, I got off track. Even with giving the mileage discount for these vehicles, they're still slightly higher than last year, and some have gone down to the 170 value, which is the lowest that we assess. We already use the lowest value in the NADA book, which is the clean loan value. We've also been informing all the taxpayers that come in that they are going to see increases in their values. Some of them already know, some of them have not heard a word. Next year, from what I hear, is not looking any better. So I've asked, please, if you guys would consider lowering the tax rate this year. That's all I got, unless you have some questions.
Will you take some questions?
Yes.
Mr.
Madam Chair, I've been in direct contact with her, and she's done a phenomenal job, and her team, and I have no questions at this time, and I mean, other than I concur with her assessment, we absolutely need to lower it.
And by the way, thank you for keeping us updated.
You're welcome.
I do have a few questions
Sure.
and just confirmation on the things you've told us. So what is the current personal property tax rate?
It's $375.
$375, and that's applies to all personal property,
does.
right? And to what degree can we lower the tax rate on vehicles and maintain a year-to-year level of revenue without reducing? If the vehicle values have increased, to what degree, based on the increased value, how much could we lower the tax rate and still maintain an even level of revenue?
Do you want to handle?
I mean, we've talked about it a couple of times, and it's honestly not a fair question, because we really don't have
Right.
a total value. We can guess, and Krista's given her best guess. But we actually just sat down right before this meeting tonight, and we're discussing that,
So it's possible that we could approve a lower rate and you end up with less revenue for the year.
You very well could,
Yes.
depending on how low you go, yes, ma'am. And that would not be very well.
So I guess on the other end, if we don't lower the tax rate on vehicles, we don't really know what that would mean in the form of additional revenue to the county either, right? I guess.
Not at this moment. I mean,
Okay.
we
We
can
can
guess.
more easily predict that number, and that is our intention, based on our conversation this evening.
Madam Chairman, if I may, Ms. Hudson, percentage-wise? You said some are, they're all going, except for this one example, they're all going up on average between the highs, the lows, everything. Do you have a gut feeling for 25% higher, 30% higher?
I've seen some as high as 37%.
Percent?
And I've seen some as low as like 1%, which, it varies. There's no rhyme nor reason as to the increases of these vehicles. We talk about it in the office all the time. We just we can't figure it out. Like this vehicle that went down 350, it's a 2020 Kia. And
So
the value
why?
went down, so why did that, and it was a sport utility, so
Right.
why did that one go down and another sport utility went up?
So, Katie, Mr. Constant, in your work to this point on the fiscal year 22-23 budget, have you factored in a year-to-year change in revenue from personal property taxes?
So what I have used, and I have not changed, again, the conversation happened this evening, I used the 2021 values, not the inflated values that will be, and used the current rate. So it is, I mean, if you were to maintain the current rate at the increased values, that number is very skewed.
So you use 2021,
Skewed low.
That's
It'd be
correct,
skewed
yes.
low.
Skewed very low.
the 2021 values. And what categories and model years of vehicles will be included in the reduction?
All vehicles.
All vehicles?
Yes.
Okay.
Now you have an option that in the code, there are like 40 classifications for personal property. Boats, for example, camper trailers, travel trailers. They can be a different rate. That's an option you could think about. I've actually seen those values increase too, so I really wasn't gonna say anything about that tonight because those values have also gone up some. But just for future reference, it is in the code. Those certain things do not have to have the general personal property rate. They can be lower. Or they could stay the same at this point, but I probably shouldn't have even said that, so. But that is something that is in the code.
Do you have a recommendation?
I would like to see some sort of relief given. It's at 375 now, maybe 365, 360. Just anything to help the citizens. Some of them are struggling as it is, and it's gonna be tough.
You have any more
So
questions?
you're suggesting 360 to
365
Five.
instead of the 375.
Any other questions?
Yes, we did provide numbers, Mr. Thompson, and everything.
Yes.
It was beneficial that we were.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Y'all need me for anything else? Do I need to stay? Okay.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Y'all have a good night.
you too.
Madam Chairman, I'm going to step down for the
Yeah.
rest of the meeting.
Yeah, the remaining budget items for discussion will be presented to the board by the County Administrator, Ted Costin. So, Mr. Costin will be turning that over to you.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I had really hoped to be able to stand up here tonight and make a pitch that you maintain the personal property rate at 375 with the understanding that anything collected over and above this year's revenues from that resource be dedicated to the public safety radio system. I'm going to have to back off of that. Ms. Tomer and I have, and particularly Ms. Tomer, have been working very diligently on the budget. And right now, we've got a very, very significant gap between revenues and expenditures. So I'm going to ask the board to tread lightly going forward on any of these items that I'm going to speak to in a moment. But let me read you from the email exchange that we got this morning from Ms. Hudson. The total taxes for 2021 on personal property at the 375 rate was $3,444,774.94. The total value so far for 2022 is $122,789.190 at the 375. And these taxes are roughly $4,604,595. $4,604,595. If the rate were to drop to 365, the taxes are roughly $4,481,805. Down to 350, $4,297,621. 340, $4,174,832. 330, $4,052,043. And at 325, the taxes are roughly $3,990,649. So you can kind of see how the rate drops. Obviously, the revenue drops despite the value that's going up. We're in very strange and challenging times right now when it comes to trying to do budgeting and calculate. What I'd like to do at this time is just kind of run through this list of items that I identified. And some of these are items that have specifically been asked, where are we in the process? As to the radio system, now this is the public safety radio system that we started with a project engineer to upgrade. This is one of the items that was identified in the Davenport study. We are presently working with Representative Spanberger's office in putting in a proposal. Mr. Hyde's taking care of that for us. We've garnered a lot of local support. We're going to be seeking about $1 million in contribution towards that project, so that it's not all having to be taken out of the coffers of Nottoway County. Like any other grant, it's competitive. We may get it. We may get through Spanberger's office and then not make it through the congressional phase. This is pretty much the same process. I think everyone's familiar with the aerial ladder truck for the Blackstone. That's pretty much that same process. We're looking at it for the public safety radio system. I want everyone to remember this radio system starts with a citizen picking up a phone and calling 911. It's a complete public safety communication system. So the police officer calling for backup, the firefighter asking for another piece of equipment to come into a scene, it's all tied into that. But it begins with the citizen picking up the phone, calling 911. The needs assessment phase of that project began Monday, March the 14th with tower site visits in the county. Now, interestingly, this project has already identified more tower sites than anybody else previously identified. Interviews for feedback are ongoing with all the public safety agencies in the county. I believe they've already done 2. They were doing one tonight with Crew at 6 o'clock. But they're working through that list of all the different public safety entities, the volunteer fire departments, and the rescue squads. All of this was outlined in the engineer's proposal that was before you in February, and a more detailed project status report will be included in your package for next week's meeting. The next steps are associated with completing the needs assessment, which is phase 1 by the end of June 2022. And then we move on down through the rest of the project. Please recall this is a multi-year project. I'd be happy to take any questions at this time on that item. Auditing software. This is, again, I'm going to refer you to the Davenport report. This is that item right there, new financial software. And this is a type of financial software that will allow for citizens to be able to pay online. I think that was trying to improve a little bit of the technology, that auditing software. Now, that's about a $300,000 expenditure. Let me go back for a minute. The radio system is multi-year, as I said, multi-year. So we can budget across multiple years for that system. And that's what we're doing right now. The auditing software, 300,000 sounds like a lot, but when you're comparing it to $5 million projects and $1.7 million projects, that's kind of an easy hit to knock out in 1 year. Be happy to take any questions you have on that item. It is an item, I'm sorry, Mr. Roy, it is an item that is supported by both the Commissioner of Revenue and the Treasurer. Mr. Roy, I'm sorry.
Okay. How much money is, because you just brought up a question that I want to ask for the radio system as well. How much money is in this year's budget towards that radio system?
We were looking, and this is something I met with the project engineer today about. What we've asked them to do is, in that 3 years, tie those 3 years to the fiscal year in terms of, okay, how much are we going to have to pay you this year, that June mark? And then what's left on the project, how many, can we spread that over a couple more fiscal years? So it's kind of hard for me to give you that number right now.
Okay.
But we are looking at spreading it out, so it's like a lump sum payment.
Okay, because that total project was what, 5.7, correct?
We had it at 5.
5, okay.
Some are suggesting it might go as much as 6. But again, if we can offset that with a grant, and not just this grant, but we'll obviously be looking for other grants as well.
But the auditing software, that $300K is in this upcoming budget, is that correct?
That's currently in this year's budget. I think that's an easy one that we can knock off the list.
Okay.
Mr. Costin, could I just clarify something? In the radio system, and you mentioned working with Ms. Spanberger's office on a grant, and it's a $5.7 million project. You made a comment the county would be sinking in $1 million.
We're seeking $1 million on that grant to offset that 5.7. So if we could get it, if the whole total package was 5.7 and we could pull in $1 million off that grant,
I see.
then we just dropped it to 4.7.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm sorry, I misunderstood
No,
that.
that's quite all right. Numbers can be challenging. Animal shelter. There's going to be a more detailed report on this next week, but that project, as with most construction projects right now, is looking at some increase in expenditures. We've been told that typically a construction project like this is historically 200 square feet. We're looking at something going higher. So again, this might be a project that gets phased out a little bit more. But again, there'll be a more detailed report on that. As far as this year's budget, there are some costs going into this year's budget. We're incurring some right now. We will incur some next year, in the next fiscal year, and those are being addressed. Again, this is going to be a project that gets spread out at least over 2 years, 2 fiscal years. Be happy to take any questions on that. There'll be more on that one next week.
When you say over 2 fiscal years, are you referring to the 22-23 and 23-24, or the 21-22, 22-23?
Right now, I'm anticipating just being able to finish it up in the 23, but if it rolls, not the 20, being able to finish it up in the 23, but if it rolls over, it could possibly roll over. It depends on supply chain issues. Cox Road. So this one, we've had some discussions with the town of Blackstone. I know Mr. Vaughn recently reported on Cox Road, and there's really not that much more we can add right now, other than the town of Blackstone has been looking into some grants. There's some possibility that we could extend that water line beyond the Fort Pickett Gate all the way out to 460 using ARPA funds, because it would be tied to an economic development opportunity. There's a significant cost in crossing under the railroad or hanging a water line off of the bridge, the VDOT bridge. I would be more inclined to go aerial than underground, but the engineering would drive that. But that's really going to be a long-term decision for the board. Now, that is not included in the budget that Ms. Tomer and I are working on. It's not included for the simple reason we don't have those ARPA funds yet. If that could be a late-minute add to the budget, that could also be a budget amendment during the course of the year in terms of receiving the money and allocating the money. What we've been told is 1.4, and depending on the grant financing that Mr. Van Orbeck and I have discussed, the county could possibly be asked to put in as much as 0.7 million, leaving 0.7 million for some other project. Again, a lot of it depends on how the grants come out and how the timing of those grants occur. We have looked at one grant that they were looking at just last week, and it was very, very much focused on the LMI, low and moderate income. But by the time you throw in the rest of the project, it lowered that LMI calculation. We were not able to pull together that grant application simply because I could not make the commitment on those ARPA funds since we didn't have it, and that's a board decision to make that decision. Because that's kind of where we are with Cox Road. I'd be happy to take any questions you have about that.
Yeah, all right, so you think the LMI was affected because the project was going all the way down to 460 possibly, is that correct?
I believe it would have had an impact on it, but again, it's kind of a moot point because they didn't pursue the application because I could not make a commitment on behalf of the board for expending the ARPA funds on that project without a formal board action.
Okay, well, when this first came to us, this has been complicated to a economic development status instead of just getting these folks clean drinking water. At first, this was brought to the board for permission to run the water line. And anything beyond that should be discussed as economic development. I still feel like right now, we are in a situation where we should just be focused on giving the town of Blackstone permission to run that line to get clean water out there to those folks. Anything beyond that, your staff with Greg and them can work towards something else. You're looking at the projection I was given that if we were to take a vote and give them permission, they're still looking at roughly a year of getting that line run, just to the entrance of Fort Pickett. I don't think those folks should sit down there and wait any longer than they need to. This has been going on for almost 20 years, and this just needs to come to a head, and we need to work towards, even if we got to break this up in sections, section 1 should be there, getting them clean water, and that's why I feel like the immediate focus needs to be on that.
I can certainly go back and get some numbers from Mr. Van Orbeck, see what kind of arrangement we could work out. Again, this is not even in the CIP right now, but that would be a budget add. But happy to do that.
One thing I mentioned to Mr. Constant today that I just learned today, I didn't realize the Blackstone Town Council has never actually formally voted to approve this water line.
That's right. Exactly right.
So I don't know, is it logical to think that we would wait for them to approve it, or?
You'd have to.
Well, my thought process on that is for 20 years, the board's been getting blamed for it. Us giving them permission doesn't affect anything in any way, shape, or form. If Blackstone decides not to run the water line, that's on Blackstone.
See, there are two ways they can do it. Blackstone could annex if they wanted to, which they wouldn't have any choice other than to run sewer and water.
Right.
But we're trying to get them to run the water line without the sewer.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. If we gave them permission to do that, they can't blame us for holding them up.
Blackstone put conditions on it that everyone had to hook on. And they have held that position for a long period of time. Now, we're hoping that the new industry that's coming there in the sawmill will be a user, a heavy user. And there are some other developers who also want the line run, so.
Yeah, I follow your train of thought on that. It's just, how much longer do they have to wait for clean water if we tie it to something else? I mean, you understand what I'm saying? Just that concern on that. I mean, I know you want to get them water out there, and how much longer do we have to wait for grant application once we give them permission? If they can move forward, their grant applications beyond that point should be on that end itself.
We can't commit this board for $1 or more million.
No, we just given them permission to run the line to Pickett Park that they've been asking for, that they say that's the reason it's been held up. We don't have any cost association with that.
Oh, yes, you do.
No, we just granting them permission to run a water line.
What cost association is there just for granting them permission to run the line?
Generally,
There's no cost in grant permission, but the point is Blackstone would have to be amenable to running the line.
and generally, what some of the conversations I've had with Mr. Van Orbeck is, would we provide if they were able to obtain a grant, would we take the whole match on the grant?
At one point, we had a grant,
But that's to go to the end of the road with economic development.
and
No,
then,
that was, there have been multiple variations on this project, because initially it was just to get it to Fort Pickett, but then there was this opportunity like, well, the ARPA funds are constrained in how you use them. For example, economic development. So we could drop in the ARPA funds, run it all the way out, perhaps open up that interchange, that intersection, and we don't even have to worry about the fact that it's LMI or the number of people. We've done it under economic development, and that was an added benefit of running the line out there.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand it, but anytime we tie it to something else, that's just longer they gotta wait for clean water. And like I said, it's been pressed upon, those citizens had reached out to me, and I'm not one to leave this treading along because we're attaching additional plows to the mule here. You know, and it's been pointed back to us that we need to give them permission. Whether they decide to do it or not has nothing to do with us granting them permission, because it costs us nothing, and it doesn't put us on the hook for anything. And it puts the fight back where it needs. If they're gonna provide the water, we've given permission. If they decide not to do it, it's on them.
what you're saying is, and this is what Blackstone has tied us to, everyone has to hook up. Everyone. The question is whether or not this board is going to tell the ones who don't want to hook up that you have to hook up.
So I have a question. If we're asked to just provide permission to run the line, then does it become between Blackstone and those citizens? As the mandatory hookup has nothing to, the county's not involved with that. That's a Blackstone issue.
That will go through the town council.
That's right.
Right.
wouldn't
That's
it?
right.
Yes or no? I don't hear.
I mean, I mean, I get it that there's other branches to this tree, but these people want clean drinking water.
I understand, and no one understands that better than me, Mr. Ward. And I have worked with these people over a period of years, but we had a grant. There were those who have changed their minds since who didn't want it. They didn't want to pay a bill every month.
Point of clarification on that report that you read at our last meeting said that it was overwhelmingly in favor to go ahead and run the line now, though.
Mr. Costin was there, I was there. You still have people who don't want it, but there are more and more coming over now.
I just don't see the point of continuing to hold this up and just not giving Blackstone permission. If they decide to go to Pickett, they go to Pickett. And if we do economic development beyond that, that's just down the
Blackstone
road.
is willing to run the line. That's not a question. The question is whether or not this board here wants to say to the people there that you have to hook up.
But again, giving Blackstone permission to run the line is not us giving Blackstone permission to force hookups.
Blackstone has already said they will run the line. That's not the issue. We don't have a line. We don't have any water. We don't have a reservoir. We don't have anything. We have to go through Blackstone.
I just look at this as an opportunity to give them permission. If they decide to move on it, that's on them. And no longer is it waiting on the county to just simply give permission. And anything beyond that gets worked in on economic development.
Madam Chair, I'll be happy to have a conversation with Mr. Van Orbeck, and I don't know if we'll be able to get anything on the agenda for next week, but we'll certainly get you all some options to consider.
Thank you.
Because it clearly could have an impact on the budget. School items, okay. Let's share with the board an email.
Thank you.
I'll see that Mr. Bowen gets copies of all the materials that were handed out this evening. This is an email budget meeting that Ms. Tomer and I had with the staff at the school board, and I asked them, you know, they were talking about some of their capital improvements needs and their this is the list I got. None of these are in the budget that Ms. Tomer and I are working on. They may be in their budget, but I'm sure not all of these are in this year's proposal. You can see there's a lot of cost there. On this note, we have set April the 28th as a joint meeting between the school board and this board. We're having to work out the location. They've suggested Burkeville Elementary, that we're leaning that way. However, we want to make sure that the meeting can be live streamed on a reliable channel. So we may be going back to their staff and suggesting that meeting be held here. But just wanted to give you some ideas of, these are things that you really haven't seen before in terms of what the school's asking for, what the school needs are anticipated. My objective over the course of a couple of years would be to lay all of these out. The school projects, the public safety projects, the run-of-the-mill stuff that we would like to do at the county, and have a 6-year plan, a comprehensive plan that very much reflects what you saw this evening, you know, with VDOT. Only rather than concentrating on road issues and VDOT issues, it's that multitude of things that hit the budget. I'd be happy to take any questions, but I would suggest, you know, that this is better discussed with the school board on the 28th.
Madam Chair, I have one concern here. I think all board members need to be present for the meeting. And the 28th, I'm not available. When are we required to have the school's budget finalized?
Ms. Tomer and I were talking about that this afternoon. We were thinking early May.
So legal advice says that May 15th is the date you should be in the school. Apparently it's not breaking any law if you don't, that's the guideline.
I would just ask this board to consider that all board members, make sure that all board members from both boards can be present, and I cannot be there.
Mr. Rourke, I know you've given some dates as to when you'll be out of town.
Anytime after the 30th, I'm good.
Anytime after the 30th? back and see if we can work that. I'm aware of some other times that other board members were out as well. Fire apparatus. I really have nothing to hand to you this evening relative to fire apparatus. But again, that conversation, that suggestion I just had about, be nice to compile, that totality of list. There are no fire apparatus items right now in the budget that Ms. Tomer and I are working on. I know Mr. Hyde has been in regular conversation with all the different volunteer organizations looking at their apparatus needs, but we have not built anything in this year for any piece of equipment. Happy to take any questions y'all have. We have received basically an invoice from the town of Blackstone for the $200,000 that you all committed to for the aerial, and we'll be releasing that before the end of the fiscal year.
So has that vehicle has been purchased?
The aerial vehicle?
Uh-huh.
Yes, ma'am. They signed the contract on it last week. And we were hearing at that meeting that, yes, the town's commitment's there, our commitment's there. There's the amount of money that Representative Spanberger brought in, but they're going to come up short because there was a calculation error that, I think this has been reported in the paper, and they're going to come up a little short, plus the equipment's getting more and more expensive.
And we do have reassurance that that 200 does go directly toward the purchase of this vehicle.
We're going to be
It's
sending
not
it,
being used for any other purpose.
We're going to be sending it that's the understanding, and we're sending it to the town, and that's how we were directed.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
When you stated that you have no funds in there for any piece of equipment, does that include the town of Crew's request for $200,000 for their new fire truck?
Yes, it does. It's not in there.
Okay, all right,
Yeah, well,
Right.
yes, the fire department's request.
right. Crew Fire Department requested $200,000 for their new truck that's coming. It's essentially replacing two trucks. It's a pumper tanker, has 3,000 gallons, and it will serve the entire county. And I do know that the chief wants to be invited to a meeting to explain his request and answer any questions that we have. But I got one concern. We had two work sessions, February 9th and 10th. And Mr. Costin was addressing the board that night and stated to us that the school had made a additional request of $1 million. Prior to that, and forgive me, I can't remember if it was the 9th or the 10th, but Mr. Costin, you stated that all requests had been approved, had been worked in, and we still had over $100,000 to the good. So at what point, I mean, did I misunderstand something when you stated that night, or?
We did not receive a formal request from the fire department for that piece of equipment.
I was here when the chief dropped it off to the staff.
It was not on, it was basically a letter that said, we want $200,000 for a fire truck, no justification, along with, we want a 15% across the board.
Okay, so y'all were in receipt of his request, it just wasn't on a proper form?
It wasn't on the form, and then we also have to factor in the allocations that we're having to make for all the equipment, all the companies, and the total impact on that public safety side. Right now, I do not have it in the budget. I don't think the budget can carry it. The proposed budget that we're working on.
All right. Forgive me, Madam Chair. There's nothing more important than the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens in Nottoway County. We got to find a way to carry that. We made that commitment to the town of Blackstone for a truck that is arguably not a necessity. This truck that the town of Crew is purchasing is absolutely a necessity. They are replacing this, we'll be replacing two trucks with one. I don't see how this is even a question. This $200,000 needs to be given to the Crew Fire Department for that truck. And with the understanding that these forms that y'all had filled out, was this the first year that y'all produced those forms?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so let's err on the side of caution with this and just say that the normal way of doing business was probably that, and I think he's earned that right to be given a pass on that.
Mr. Rourke, that's not a problem. The problem's going to come down to dollars and cents.
Well, and I understand that it's always about money, but when someone's house is on fire, ain't nobody thinking about money. When this truck is going to respond to every fire call in the county because it's going to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest carrier of water, that is not a question for me.
That's great justification. I wish we had had it in the document that we did receive.
Do you know, has Crew sought grant assistance as Blackstone has for these?
Not that I'm aware of. I know
You know
that.
why?
I don't, and like I said, he is requesting the opportunity to meet with the board to explain his request and answer any questions.
No, I recall that Ms. Foster with CRC was asked about this particular item, and that she said that because they had already bought the truck, coming in on the back end and asking for grants was going to work against them. Because basically, as a grant reviewer, you're asking for the money up front, you know, as opposed to, you know, the interpretation would be as a grant reviewer, if you've already signed a contract, you already had the money lined up. Right. You're just trying to supplant your funds.
I talked with her too. I serve on that committee. And the explanation you gave was exactly the one that she gave me.
So did Crew come to us with this request for funding after they had already purchased the truck?
I'm not sure when they
No,
purchased
they
it.
had intentions to purchase the truck because they had sent one off, and there were some additional repairs that they were unaware of, that they spent some money into one, and basically, they will be left with a zero balance if they have to pay out for this truck. I mean,
When they made the 200,000 request, they had already purchased the truck.
no, I believe they were in the process of looking at that point. But there again, I can't swear.
Now they've purchased it now, is that correct?
As I understand it, they say that this truck they got two that they're going to be taking out of commission.
Without funding.
Right.
They've contracted for a purchase without commitment of funding.
I think so.
Why don't, if the chief has asked for an opportunity to come and present,
Yeah, we can get those questions answered.
I'll have Mr. Hyde kind of lay out what we want to hear is what's the chronology.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think to be fair too, that we got to understand, these are volunteers that are dedicating, and I know that y'all are aware of that these are volunteers that are dedicating their time, their own personal resources to go get this training. And now this is just my personal, they should not have to fight and scratch and claw to get the equipment that they need to go out here and volunteer to protect our citizens. And I just feel like that if there's an oversight, that we need to be working closer with them. And now we have Buddy here. Now we have things that are changing, but in the past, it's always been, we got to beg, and they beat their heads against the wall. But we set a precedent by giving $200,000 for a ladder truck. And again, regardless of how they requested it or how they went forward with the process, we did that on a truck that was not necessary. This is a vehicle that is absolutely necessary for the safety of every citizen in the county of Nottoway.
We have several three-story buildings or more. And according to the Blackstone firemen, we need a ladder truck, and it would be used for the entire county. That's why I voted for it, and that's why they applied to Congressman Abigail. She helped them with a grant, and that's why we did it.
Mr. Hyde, I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you have any thoughts about this?
Yeah, you're not putting me on the spot. I mean, this is the life I live. Yeah, sure, sure. You know, I think, you know, with you bringing me on board is gonna make things easier in the future. I really wanna see them get on a capital improvement plan for all these trucks. That's really the way to do it. They are going up. I mean, our neighboring, counties are buying some trucks here recently. You know, just an engine is getting close to $1 million. We never seen prices like this in my entire career. You know, jumping 300,000 just since COVID. You know, so it's really amazing. I would say pull the documents that Chief Wilson signed for the contract to order the truck and see what the date on that is, and then pull the document that was submitted to Ms. Tomer, see what the dates were. Just match the dates first, and then but let Chief Wilson talk to you. I mean, he talks to me. I talk to him today. I talk to him on a regular basis. Just let him present his case to you. Are they both needed? Can I speak as a firefighter? They both are. They both need it. Every county needs a ladder truck, one. And that would be the one for Nottoway County. So most counties around here don't need more than one, but it helps everybody's insurance rating because you do need something to get elevated operations. Tanker, as Mr. Rourke was speaking of, that's needed as well. It's a supply truck to supply all other trucks. And when you take the load, you're essentially taking 2 truckloads in one, on one set of wheels. So they're valuable to every county as well. And we're seeing now in 2020, in this decade, a lot more of those trucks being purchased just because less people driving the trucks now. And so you take more with you with less personnel.
Madam Chair,
So those are the answers. They're both needed. Just how we approach it. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, because it is a dual roll truck. That is a tanker pumper that they're purchasing.
It is. It's primarily a tanker. I've looked at the specs.
All right.
Yeah, it's mainly a water hauler, but the reason people specify them now as a tanker pumper in firefighter terms is it's a dual-purpose truck.
Yeah.
So that it can actually pull up to any house in Nottoway County and begin operations, not just haul water there. So that's why it's called a combination unit. But I really would like to see all of the chiefs, and I presented this to them in the meetings, is that, and I'll echo what Mr. Costin says, there needs to be a process. We need a good, solid process for capital improvement, for the fire. I mean, I'm only focusing on fire. I'm not focusing on solid waste trucks and things like that. But certainly, I want them to get to where we're planning for the budget 8 months out, not just 2 months out.
Well, when you say capital improvement too, we set aside $1.5 million for capital improvement. Wouldn't that be prime to come out of something like that?
I can't speak to that. That's going to be, kind of haven't been here long enough, but I'd have to yield back to Mr. Costin. But capital improvement, of course, we all know the definition. So I think having a plan, because each year I'm sure someone is going to come up. But I will say this, and let me just close on this. One of the things we've talked about in the Chiefs meeting, and I think this is going to work well if they stick to this, is that we're going to take, I've got a list I'm starting on the ages of the trucks. And we look at the ages and the type of truck, and we project out and do a long-range plan so that it's staggered purchases. And then that way we can give you a snapshot on a spreadsheet that says, this is what's going on in the next 10 years. This is who will need a truck in this particular year. And they would agree to the year they need the truck because it's all part of our technical knowledge and the wear and tear. So they would be able to speak to that more than I can on the wear and tear. And I think that would be a good way to plan. Moving forward, I don't know the solution to this year. Thank you.
Just, Ms. Tommy, maybe you would remember over the past couple of years, so we know we funded or put $200,000 toward this aerial truck. How about for the crew rescue squad, the ambulances? Did we fund over a year or so ago in the last budget? What did we fund a purchase?
We were able to help them purchase one through CARES funding.
That was CARES funding. And I don't want to get off track, but since you brought that up, will we, somehow in relation to the budget, will we get an accounting of, I'm assuming all that the CARES funding has ended and an accounting of the expenditures and what was returned or? Great, just, thank you.
So, Madam Chair, members of the board, continuing on in this discussion, the 1.5, that's exactly what you want to put into a CIP. Now, I kind of said this year, anything over 100,000. Okay, things that we usually typically turn over, vehicles like police, sheriff's vehicles, those types of things, that's just an operational expense. They roll over. When you're putting down $500,000, $1 million, yeah, that's a capital expense. And so you can set it up, as you've seen VDOT set it up tonight, where there's money set aside each year, and when you get to your purchase year, you've got some money in the bank. But as you've also had with your discussions with Davenport, you can also do some financing. You don't have to pay everything up front. You can do some financing if you want to incur the debt.
I have pushed for a capital improvement budget for the last 8 to 10 years. We didn't do it. We should have done it. And a lot of these projects now are coming due, and we don't have the money to do it. But it should be organized. It should be a capital improvement budget that we ought to put money in every year.
That's a great segue. If I can move on to the next one, the Public Safety Training Center. I've got a couple items here for you. Let me pass out. I'll explain them.
Thank you.
Okay, this is another item not in the budget this year. And this is the estimate on repair work from 2015, and then a subsequent estimate on 2016 of work needed at the Fire Training Center. Now, the Fire Training Center, Mr. Hyde, you can correct me if I'm wrong, has basically been owned and operated by the Fire Association that is in the process of reorganizing. The underlying land is owned by the town of Blackstone. I understand that this was a multi-jurisdictional effort, and over time, jurisdictions have peeled off. And this is it's got the potential to be a great public safety training center. It could be used by both fire, rescue, and law enforcement. But right now, it's not in great shape. That's a significant expense. Probably, given the age of these, you're looking at easily another $200,000 of repair work that would have to go into that. But from the last meeting of the group that Mr. Hyde's pulling together, and it's making some progress, it was pretty clear that the expectation was that the county and the town ought to get together and do something with it. And that's a price tag right there. It's not in the budget right now. I don't think we have room for it. Mr. Hyde has said he probably could go back in and get a newer estimate and maybe find some ways to fix some things, but then it really has to be certified to be used as a training facility. And right now, because of the condition, it's probably couldn't retain that certification. Okay.
It's dated February 24th, 2012. Madam Chair, I think me personally, I think if we're gonna even consider this, we should have a current, proposal for this. And I would say the other thing is, we can't,
Mr. Hyde thinks it might be a typo, but this is what we were given.
okay. Yeah, that's just my thought, Madam Chair. I just think we need something updated.
Thank you.
He agrees.
Hopefully that $250 for first responders. This is part legal opinion and part managerial opinion. Anytime you start paying volunteers for their work, even as a one-time bonus, you have to worry about whether doing so effectively changes their classification from volunteer into employee, for whom the county would then be liable for minimum wages, overtime, workers' compensation, unemployment, and all other protections afforded to employees. I'm not really sure that the volunteer organizations would appreciate the county kind of getting into their personnel business. That all work is for remuneration and therefore establishes an employment relationship. I've actually ran into this at VDM where we had to stop hiring interns that would come in from the VCU program. Running the numbers, looking at now, when we say first responders, I'm including law enforcement, fire, and EMS. In Nottoway County, that totals 188 persons, and that the 250 rate, $47,000.
I was gonna say, is it the wording where it says bonus, or is it stipend? Does that make a difference, or?
I've been told that stipend would make a difference, but it still opens that door, it still opens that slippery slope. I have spoken to all of the folks that well, 3 of the 4 folks that I used to supervise at VNM, and those 3, I spoke to them because they're all former fire guys or actively in volunteer programs, and they said, quite frankly, they've never heard of such an idea. Now, stipends such as a break on the personal property rate, they said, yeah, that's pretty common. I mean, that's been going around. I can remember that happening back when I was in Matthews in the late 1980s. So that's a pretty common thing. But the implication of paying a bonus or giving a bonus implies that that's a bonus above and beyond compensation. Now you're opening the door to someone saying, well, then I should have been compensated. And if you're a volunteer, you're not on a payroll. It just becomes very convoluted. I obviously am not, I can't support this for the reasons that it jeopardizes the county on so many fronts relative to human resource management. The 47,000, you'll see in a moment, 47,000 can make a lot of difference.
So is there any, no, or like the CARES money, this is backpedaling, but would the CARES money have ever been available?
That was not a scenario where you could just give an emergency fund of any kind of stipend or bonuses. Specifically, having 2 positions, those that were compensated positions as well.
Okay.
CARES also had to be directly related to COVID in some manner, didn't it?
Direct mitigation.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I was asking, Madam Chair, was because I believe this was asked to be implemented as they continue to serve through the COVID pandemic. I think that's originally what Mr. Mr. Bradford's
I
request
thought the
was.
original request was related to working during the ice storm.
That's the ice storm? Okay,
The original request was related to the ice storm. According to the board's minutes,
oh, okay.
it had to do
All
with the ice storm.
All right, I got my thought process bent over here, but,
Any questions on that? All right. Okay, overall status of the budget. And I guess I'm going to talk about some of the items that are actually below this. We're doing the best we can with the information we have. And right now, the information we have from the General Assembly is there's still no state budget. We do not know if the sales tax on groceries is going to be completely eliminated, as is the version in one of the houses, or if the 1% will be retained for localities, as it is in the other. If we were to lose that 1%, we really don't even have a clear, and obviously I've talked with the treasurer about this, we don't have a clear breakdown in terms of the sales tax receipts that come in as to how much of that is from groceries and how much of that is from, some other item that somebody's bought at a hardware store. So we really don't know what that is. We are right now $2.9 million out of bounds, looking at all of the requests that have come in and the expenses that we can anticipate. Now, I'm going to be very honest with you. I am being very, very conservative on the revenue side. Getting ready to go to work last week, I heard, Deutsche Bank has basically said, big recession's coming. We all know what's happening at the gas pump. We all know what's happening at the grocery store. Yes, it impacts the citizens, but their inability to spend also impacts, again, back on the county budget. Right now, we are $2.9 million out of whack, and so I'm sitting there thinking, cut here, cut here, cut here. Again, as I started this evening when I came to the podium, I wish I had been able to say, hey, keep that personal property rate where it is so that we can put it towards the public safety radio system. I'm really having to say, you might want to keep that personal property rate where it is so we can make operational cost. I'm looking very strongly at cutting each and every request for new personnel. There were 4 persons requested in DSS. There have been 2 in the Sheriff's Office for SDOs. There have been some dispatcher positions requested. I even had a position in there looking to try to convert my part-time into a full-time. We're not going to be able to do that. I just know we're not going to be able to do that. I wish I had better news for you. I do have some better news for you. That part-time position that we did put in has been able to dig down into landfill, and we have been very aggressive about this. We've been able to recover well over $30,000-$40,000 in past due landfill bills. One of the things that I'm going to present to you all here is an updated version of a new proposed fee schedule. This is the policy first. I'm sorry. Oh, there we go. Okay. It's fee schedule and policy. Listen, you got the fee schedule, so you need the policy. And you got the policy, you need the fee schedule.
I got fee schedule.
You got the fee schedule, so you need the policy. Fee schedule and policy. So, aggressively collecting some past due accounts. And one of the things that you'll see in one of the revisions to the policy is the county needs to start charging interest on late payments. We've never charged interest on late payments. So, I can't tell you how much money's just kind of gotten through. So we're doing good to get back the principal. We'll never get back that interest, but we're trying to collect the money. At this point in time, right now, the good news is the landfill is in the hole, but less than $200,000.
all right.
So, that's the good news, less than $200,000. I need to stress to you all that the landfill kind of had a windfall this year with the Afghans being at Fort Pickett. We are not going to have that in the future. I'm looking at a very, very significant increase in landfill charges. Now, we are negotiating, have been negotiating, I think we're close to a deal, and it will be formalized with the town of Blackstone, that they will continue to take our leachate at a reduced rate, more than what they've been charging in the past, but still a reduced rate of 1 penny per gallon for each gallon of leachate. They've agreed to that with a 3-year commitment, that we keep that agreement in place for 3 years, which means we don't have to worry about a leachate, charge going up for 3 years. And we will also waive off their sludge fees. So for that, we're getting a lock-in on leachate. One of the other things that we're looking at doing with the landfill is getting away from owning our own vehicles and put them on a lease process so that we don't have to worry about the repair expenses. Repair expenses have been pretty rough this year. But essentially, we're looking at charging. I'd still like to try to I've rethought closing on Saturday. That doesn't really save us anything because the personnel will just basically get reassigned and work another day. So we're not really changing anything on personnel. And then the equipment runtime, if it's lease equipment, that doesn't really get us anything. We will be discussing, it's on the agenda for next Thursday, the convenience center hours. I can pretty much tell you I'm not going to support expanding convenience center hours because of the cost incurred with the personnel being there. I know it's a service to the citizens. It comes with a cost. We can't afford it. Obviously, this is not a decision-making situation tonight, but you all need to, I would encourage you all to look at these, read them over. We've highlighted the changes in the policy, and we've highlighted the changes in the fees. But one of the issues, and I was approached by one of the towns just prior to tonight's meeting, was the, let's see if I can find an email real quick. I'm not going to identify which town it is. And we had some confusion with the town of Burkeville earlier in this process. And we found out that Burkeville, the $3 that's charged on everyone's bill, Burkeville doesn't run theirs through any of their utilities. It's run through Dominion. So the Burkeville portion and the unincorporated portion of Nottoway served by Virginia Power, that $3 per meter per month comes to us for the landfill. Same thing with Southside. Crew collects it through their water. Blackstone collects it through their electrical. Okay, it's $3. We cannot go any higher. We've gotten an opinion from our attorney based on the state code. We're capped at $3. We can raise it on business and industry. We cannot raise it anymore on residents. Now, the total amount of money, I'm just going to pick a town here. The total amount of trash that comes in from this municipality equates to $65,207. This was a given year. What they collect and turn over to us, $33,285. We're in the hole $32,264. I am proposing that we start billing each town for the total municipal waste. Now, they can use that $3 that they collect from their residents off the meters towards that. And, then it's kind of on them to figure out where they're going to get the rest of it. But we're in a bad situation with this landfill. We're in a bad situation with the budget overall. But the landfill has been the Achilles heel here for several years. So I don't need a decision tonight. I know I'm throwing some really bad news at you. It's some really tough, a tough situation. And I'm not making life pleasant for, Mr. Welch, Mr. Thrower, or Mr. Van Orbeck, or their councils. But that's the situation we're in. I'd be happy to take any questions.
May I make a suggestion?
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair? The landfill is composed of the county. The 3 towns are very much involved because they closed their landfill, and we decided years ago to just have one landfill. And I would suggest somewhere in the minutes ought to be the members of the committee. But the committee was composed of our board, members from our board, and members from each of the towns. And they should also have a say in how we go about attacking this debt of the landfill, because it's not just the county's landfill. It's Nottoway, it's the whole, like the towns and the county and the businesses. So we need to bring them in on this discussion and come up with a way to alleviate this debt.
Madam Chair, point of clarification. I thought somewhere along the line, we had, that we were gonna move forward with an RFP for a study that included input from all 3 towns. I thought,
The solid waste study is that's one of the few things that we're trying to maintain and keep in the budget, in that landfill portion of the budget. And yeah, that would be the perfect thing for them to sit down and be a part of.
and I thought that was put in the RFP. It was supposed to be put in the RFP.
We can put in, the RFP hasn't been generated yet.
Okay.
I do think the board would agree that we would rely on information in that study to make decisions going forward about the operation of the landfill. Another question I have, do we risk, if we're going to throw some significantly increased cost at the towns, if those towns are in turn providing us services, did we see recently that do we run the risk of them recouping those costs by increasing even more dramatically costs to the county, and then we come out in worse shape than we are?
I don't know. I know that we've been impacted by the crew rate increase on our water. I don't recall that we were, and this could have been before I got here, but I don't recall being engaged in that. They're looking at it the same way I'm looking at it, dollars and cents.
Sure.
Well, Madam Chair, I had 2 other quick questions for him. This fee schedule that you proposed here just glancing at it, I'm assuming there's changes in it, is that correct?
Absolutely. What's highlighted are the changes.
All
Yes,
right,
sir.
so that is something that we're gonna have to formally vote to accept, is that correct?
Not tonight, certainly.
Right.
But, or if, some point in time in the future, that's the recommendation. In fact, much of the budget that we're working on is built on reliance of those new fees.
Well, that leads to the question I was trying to get to for you is these fees in line with other landfills once they're moved up? Because I know before they were like way off and they were raised without knowing what the impact was gonna be as far as would it help really feed the monster and fill it up, or we were just putting a Band-Aid on a severed arm?
The 2020 increase, that's kind of that's been my starting point. To answer your question, no, we haven't gone around and compared, because so some of the things that we take, the other people don't take, and vice versa. We'll take some things that other people won't take. But we can do that. We can certainly do a comparison over to some of the other landfills, whether they be municipal or private. We can do a comparison.
Well, because Madam Chair, I was just thinking if we're gonna
Madam Chair,
do another increase on this,
have a
can we?
responsibility because they have closed their landfill. Madam Chair, the towns closed their landfill. I remember because we made this agreement, and it's the towns as well as the county's responsibility to come up with a fee schedule that's going to get us out of this. I'm recommending that we look at the committee. The committee might still be, you might find it in the minutes, but I'm for pulling this committee together and to see what they can do as far as this is concerned. And it involves all the 3 towns as well as the county.
I'll circle back with the town managers
Yes.
and see if they can recall.
Okay.
Mr. Vaughn, with all due respect, times have changed. And, that situation, whatever those agreements were, they need to be refreshed.
Well,
But even if some of the people I know, some of the people have died who were on this committee, but they can name some other folks to put on this committee. It has to be worked out. And for us to work it out and then say, here, this is what you need to do, I think they ought to be involved in the process, is what I'm saying.
Madam Chair, the only other question I have one was, do we know, without giving the locality away, do we know why they didn't pay that full total? Well, you said, I believe it was like 32,000 short or something.
I think, I can only speculate, Mr. Rourke, it goes back to the agreement that Mr. Vaughn has referred to, that they would provide the $3, and that was, I'm sure that was great at a certain point in time, but it's not great now. So, yeah, I mean, we don't even have to, the 2 towns that are collecting it, we don't even have to bill them. They send us the money.
Gotcha.
Not, no questions asked, they send us that money. And it fluctuates because it fluctuates on whether houses are occupied and that type of thing. But there's no, they send us what they owe us. I'm just saying it's not covering it, and more is needed.
Well, Madam Chair, it just moving forward with this fee schedule here, I think we should try to be as close as in line, because if you don't get it here with the actual users, then we're looking at a tax increase somewhere to supplement something. So that's the reason why I was asking, can we get some sort of actual, make sure we're kind of closer in line? Because I remember in 2020, Mr. Rourke had told us that we don't know what the impact on the increases was going to be. That was the reason why I voted against it at the time. But if we're in line and the users are paying for it, I have no qualms with that. So that's kind of where I was going with that.
So you want comparisons on area, regional, landfills, private or public?
Yeah,
Insert- and circle
whatever's
back to
comparable to what we're taking there, yeah.
Okay. The last item I have on here is the LRA separation, and by that I mean separating out the budget. That process is working. We will be able to, I think, have an easier time getting that separated and balanced out. Again, I'm being very, very conservative on the revenue side because of the current economic conditions. One of the things, and I'm going to rely on Ms. Tomer because she was here last year for this, but I understand that last year you all had to dip into reserves to balance the budget. And to the tune of 1.3?
Offset the 1.5 that they obligated at that.
Right, and so dipping into reserves, may have kicked the can down the road, and now we're looking at 2.9. So, as I said, we've got to go back, sharpen the pencil, cut some numbers, but I think you're going to have some tough decisions ahead of you. Obviously, this is my first budget with Nottoway. I was really hoping to have to say, avoid any kind of a tax increase, but I can't rule that out right now. So we'll just have to see what the numbers work out. But I'm certainly open to any good ideas. If anybody has any ideas on some concern that they've had in the past, that maybe we can, find, cut an expense here, generate a little revenue over here, I'm very open to suggestions.
Do you know at this point, this 2.9 million that you're out of balance, can you tell, is that primarily attributable to significantly increased expenses or significant reduction in revenue? Well,
Well, as
what-
I was sitting here, I've been going through everything. My brain is shot trying to figure this out. It's a little bit of both, but some of it is, I just noticed, I just figured out what part of it is. It's not $2.9 million, but it's a substantial amount where we have shifted funds from the general fund, the money for the LRA. We have taken that out of the general fund and put it in its own separate operating fund, as it should have been done.
So that's not a reoccurring loss.
There's some of that money that's still in the general fund that needs to come out, so that will reduce the deficit by some.
I knew she'd figure it out.
That's not a reoccurring loss ongoing.
This is a this will be
Right.
like a one-time budget adjustment to separate this, the authority from the
Right.
county.
So we're not actually losing it, it's still here in the county.
Oh, yeah, it's still here in the county, yes.
It's being accounted for in its own pot of money,
Right, as it should be.
as it should be.
The other
And
question I would
that has been a recommendation by your auditors for 3, 4, 5 years now, yeah.
Right. The other question I would have is, we didn't touch anything in that 1.5 million, right?
Yes, you did.
We did.
The 200,000 that is going to the town of Lansing is obligated out of that 1.5.
Okay. So if we don't, I'm talking out loud here. You could put that 1.3 back in the general fund.
If you don't use it, that's exactly right. It's essentially still there to wash.
Does that trim that back to 1.6?
No, because you're working with the fund balance and not the actual.
Okay, all right. See, that's why you're here.
It shows in the end, but it's not what you're gonna see on paper.
Okay, all right. Because I don't want to get away from capital outlay.
Well, and we have talked about this, that it was our intentions to separate that even further from the general fund
There you go.
and put it in a capital improvements fund.
There you go. Okay.
I was gonna ask, right now, we don't have it's not physically separated. Everything still sits in the general fund.
We're going to stick to whatever
Yeah.
plan we decide.
So we're in a growing pain, a change in pain in the system.
It's a change pain, yeah, it's a change pain.
It's not a severed arm. This is actually something we can put a Band-Aid on, and it'll start correcting itself in the oncoming budgets.
That's the plan. That's why this CIP concept is a little bit this year, a little bit more the next year, a little bit more the year after that.
See, y'all didn't have so much bad news.
So when we look at your final presentation, will we have a year-to-year comparison to be able to see
Yes.
this year,
So your standard budget
your projected
report
budget?
will be the same. It'll just be a little abbreviated like what you had last year, but it still gives you that 2 years prior.
Okay.
But you will see that some line items are zeroed out, because that's just the way the system's built. But those line items will appear in another category.
Well, I'm hoping we can even avoid that. I'm hoping
Oh,
that it
really?
will-
Okay.
I'm hoping that it will print to where everything's reflected.
It would be helpful to have an apples-to-apples comparison.
Now, it will,
for a better
a lot of it's going
understanding.
to look different from the standpoint of, we broke out a lot of things for sheer transparency.
Right.
We eliminated the miscellaneous revenues, we eliminated discretionary funds outside of the boards, all of that.
Right.
Everybody has unified utilities, everybody has unified telephone, training, travel, everything will look, for the most part, the same across the budget.
Great.
And that has been actually much more successful than
Am I going completely off the rails if I ask, once we get this budget finalized, to say, is there any way to project future budgets?
that was his intentions all along.
Okay, because when you start projecting future budgets, and I know it's nothing to tie yourself to, and it's kind of a wish list, but I was thinking that if we could do that, that would tie into the financial analysis, because you're still talking 3 to 6 years.
Right.
Those tax increases of 10 cents.
The problem here, this very year though, is everything that he's already said, that at this point, it's still up in the air.
Right.
Yeah.
That 1% grocery tax can very much affect us.
Yeah.
and
Well, just like the events in Afghanistan affected us. You know, but Mr. Rourke, to your question about can you project it? Yes, once you and that's kind of what we do with the budget every year. We say, well, what happened 2 years ago? What happened last year? What's going on this year? If you're in December, you're halfway through your year. Divide by 6, multiply by 12. You can kind of do those real rudimentary things to figure out your budget, where you're heading. The thing is, it's like stock. Past performance doesn't guarantee future performance. Right. So things can go up, things can go down. And look where we were with gas prices 2 years ago. Look where we are now.
Right.
So you know what we're having to do with the budget. We're having to throw a lot more at gas prices. Madam Chair, that's all I have, unless either board members have any other general concerns.
Any questions, comments?
Oh, I got plenty, but
Just absorb
My
all
only
of
question
this.
is, what is the
Don't be
deadline?
afraid to whack if you have to.
What is the deadline for us to adopt this
You can
budget?
always have more requests than you have money
We
for.
always have more requests than we do money, and as I've said it before,
Yes. Yeah.
that
There's no official deadline for adopting the department, okay.
But the problem being is if you don't have that budget adopted, technically,
Yeah,
as long as July 1 and 2 operate together.
yeah.
Mr. Vines, I tell you, every line item is important to somebody. But
Okay, thank you, Mr. Constant and Ms. Tomer, appreciate it. All right, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.